NCARC TechNet. This is Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo. Net control for this evening's TechNet. Looking for check-ins. Anyone wishing to check in for tonight's net, please call now.
This is Kilo Echo 0, Uniform Foxtrot Delta, Scott in Windsor.
This is Kilo Echo 0, Oscar X-Ray Victor, Scott, up here in Fort Collins.
Hello, Romeo Delta, Ann in Fort Collins.
Okay, we had a little bit of a double there. I got Ann. Can you come back with your call sign, please?
Hello, 0 Alpha Romeo Delta.
Got that. Whoever doubled with Ann, please come back.
This is Kilo Echo 0, Lima Charlie Kilo, the other Mike from Windsor.
Thank you. Looking for check-ins for this evening's TechNet. If you'd like to check in, please call now.
This is Whiskey 0, Alpha Sierra Papa, W0ASP, Terry in Berthoud.
Evening, Terry. Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo looking for check-ins. Anyone wanting to check in for tonight's TechNet, please call now.
This is Kilo Indigo 5 Echo Victor, KI5 EEV, Taryn from Fort Collins, checking in.
Hey, sound like we had another double there. KI5EEV, Taryn. Someone that doubled with him, please call again.
Yeah, this is Kilo Foxtrot 4, Delta Uniform Sierra, KF4DUS, Horsetooth Mike.
Got you in there, Mike. Anyone wanting to check in for this evening's TechNet, please call now.
So Juliet 0, Foxtrot, Doug in Loveland.
Sorry about that, Doug. I doubled with you. I lost the beginning of your call sign. Can you please come back with your full call sign?
Here, Kilo Juliet 0, Foxtrot, Doug in Loveland.
Thank you. This is KA6ET looking for check-ins for tonight's TechNet. If you're wanting to check in for tonight's net, please call now.
This is Kilo 1 Delta Echo Golf, Mike in Platteville. This is Alpha Echo 0, Charlie Foxtrot, Ben in Fort Collins. This is 0, November, Yankee, Bart in Evans. Good evening.
Good evening. Good. Anyone else looking to check in for tonight's net, please call now.
Kilo 0, Eric near car.
Kilo Echo 0 and your name, your suffix, you dropped out a little bit. Please call again.
0 Echo Victor.
Copy that, K0EV. Anyone else looking to check in for tonight's net, please call now.
Whiskey 2, Mike, India, Charlie, Mark, in Loveland.
This is Kilo 0 Lima Alpha Oscar with Kilo 0 Papa Romeo Bravo, K0 LAL, and K0 PRB, Luann and Phil in Loveland.
Good evening. Anyone else looking to check in for tonight's net, please call now. Hear nothing. This is Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo, net control for this evening's Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club TechNet. Start the evening with, if anyone has any questions for the net, please call now. Hear nothing. I'll bring up a topic, something that I've been thinking about, especially over the past 2 weeks or week and a half, helping with communications with a couple of events. Batteries. As far as a question, see what other people think on when should you change the battery in your HT, whether it's after a few hours of use or when it dies and shuts off. What's someone's thoughts or comments on that?
Zero and YY.
NYY Bart, go ahead.
That you didn't buy the HT this week, and you've been using it for a while, maybe a long while, you probably know its characteristics. I had a VX5 that would tend to run pretty warm, and when it started not getting as warm anymore, I knew my battery was about to die. Oftentimes you'll hear people in certain places talking, and they'll start to get a little weaker and a little weaker, and you can tell them, and they know, oh, my battery's done. That's what it does. So getting to know the radio really, really helps a lot. The VX5 also, along with a couple other radios that I have a battery voltmeter on them, which if you learn where it's going to die, then it's actually meaningful for you, and it can help you get the most out of each battery. And Zero and YY back to net.
Yeah, definitely getting to know your radio does help quite a bit. The reason bring it up is past couple events. There's been a lot of newer hams helping out and getting into it, which is a great thing. But you could definitely tell after halfway through the events, people are starting to not hold the repeater, dropping out. Audio levels are getting very low when they should be having no issues. Most of them aren't aware of it, and explaining to them in the middle of an event, you need to have full battery, especially whenever any type of communications, you want your signal to be strong, not weak. And a lot of people that I found try and extend the life of their battery to the very last possible second when they should have changed it a couple hours ago. Anyone else have any comments on when they feel you should change the battery on your HT?
LAO?
LAO, go ahead.
I totally agree with you, because in an event, you need to make sure that you don't try and just coax the battery down to the very end. You need to make sure that you have a strong signal. Phil and I have done net control, and you can tell towards the end of the event, people are cutting in and out, and it's not a good thing when you can't copy what someone's trying to tell net control.
Definitely. I know with the Colorado Marathon a week and a half ago, and then the Quad Rock 50, and the Colorado Marathon wasn't as bad just because of the length of the event only being 6 hours or so, where the Quad Rock 50 we were at 15 hours on for the event, and a lot of people thinking that my HT, I know I can get a full day out of it. Yeah, a full day of 8 to 10 hours of minimal use, when at an event you have a lot of use on it, and you're lucky to get 7-8 hours of good communications out of it. Anyone else have any comments on when you should change the battery, or what is a good battery, the battery that comes with it, or should you upgrade to a larger battery?
KI5 EEV.
EV, Taryn, go ahead.
I'm not too familiar with the internals on HTs, but I could see maybe the radio not being able to produce as much power on high power, but for most HTs, if you're on a low or medium power, even with low battery, is it usually able to maintain it, or is it more of an issue if you're having to use high power?
Definitely more of an issue if you're running high power on an HT. If you're able to lower the transmit power, you obviously use less power out of the battery, and it can last longer. But the downside with that is most events take place in the mountains, to where you're kind of relying on high power, unless you get one of the lucky spots and you're in town without any issues. But there are cases where you definitely need high power, so you can't really rely on cutting the power back to extend the battery for the day. Anyone have any additional comments for that?
YY.
NYY, go ahead.
Something that you mentioned, the power level that you're using. If you have a much better antenna than a little stubby duck on your HT, that will help tremendously, and you may be able to actually work a lower power. What you're using for an antenna does make a big difference. My son was forever plagued with really old batteries in a DJ 580, and he went and bought a little, I think it was a 4 amp hour 12 volt gel cell. It fit in a fanny pack. He wore that, and he had a little coily cord running up to the radio. That thing would talk all day long. And zeroed my way.
That would definitely be a way to upgrade a battery and extend the life of your HT throughout the day without having to change it. And, well, that brings up another question. I know me, for the Like, for example, the Colorado Marathon, I was in my vehicle, so I was using my mobile all day. Also had to rely on crossband repeater to get the start-finish line to be able to communicate with the repeater. For that, I have Go Box radio with the 20 amp hour battery, everything set up to where we're able to do that. Then, like the Quad Rock event this past Saturday, I was up top of Horsetooth at the aid station, and I took my Go Box radio and power pack with the 200 amp hour, or 2 100 amp hour batteries and some solar panels, and so we were running full power from there all day, even though we were trying to use HTs whenever we could. You could definitely tell when they were getting low, and we'd go over to the mobile and have clear communications again. But what's people's thoughts on the best type of battery to use for an external power source if you were to set up a type of Go Box? Is it the AGM, gel cell, or try and find a smaller LiPo battery?
N0 WIQ.
WIQ, Gary, go ahead.
Rule of thumb that works for handhelds as well as mobile rigs, or any other rig really, is that if you're transmitting, say, 5 watts, then you need to supply 10 watts of power to do that. So you need a battery that will supply 10 watts of power for some extended period of time. Well, then you go into the situation where you want a battery you can carry. So that changes what you can do. But some battery that won't leak if it's tipped over, some battery that, so we're talking a gel cell, maybe a small one like a motorcycle battery or a go-kart battery, something like that, which, yeah, it's heavy enough to be a load, but it's up to you to determine whether it's too much of a load for you. But on the other hand, these batteries are good, solid batteries. Will take a lot of abuse. But on the other hand, they're made more for a quick jolt of power rather than a long haul. So we go into what is called a deep cycle battery, which usually are pretty good sized batteries anyway. But they hold their power rating for a longer period of time. So these are all things to think about. And the rule of thumb, 5 watts takes 10 watts of battery power, things like that. So when you talk about the ampere hours, you're talking about so many amps for so many hours. And if you're holding 12 volts semi-constant, we're talking about those amps times 12 for the power level. And so, I mean, these are some basic thoughts that I think of when I go to think about how to do things. Now, if I were setting up a mobile station for long use on mobile with a 100-watt radio in it, I would have a big, long cycle battery. I would rig it up so it would be charged when it was down, so that when the motor was running, I could charge it. But on the other hand, I would primarily use it for my radio. But hey, these are things, like I said, it's always things to think about. Oops, I'm getting a beep. It was my earpiece that was beeping. Anyway, as just one of those things. Some of these basic ideas need to be thought about for any radio installation and any radio use.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gary. Yeah, weight is definitely something to consider when dealing with batteries. I know for me, I did some testing with my HT. I always carry 2 batteries for it, even for longer days. I did find a small battery backup that allows me to charge my HT. The battery backup is a solar charger with a 25,000 milliamp hour battery in it that allows me to charge my HT. I can charge my HT 3 or 4 times before having to recharge the charger itself, but I can also, if I'm outdoors, I can plug my HT battery into it, charge it, and still have the solar charging the reserve battery in the same amount of time, keeping it at a full charge. As long as I'm not trying to use the battery at the same time, it will keep it charged to where I have constant power in the reserves. Anyone have any other comments or questions regarding batteries?
U0ASP, I have a question.
Terry, go ahead.
My question is around transporting batteries of various chemical technologies, and especially by air. As far as I know, lithium batteries, they essentially do not let them travel by air. You can have them on your carry-on bags if they are installed in a radio, but you cannot have spare batteries in your checked baggage. And in particular, I'm thinking about, I have to go to Puerto Rico next month, and I want to bring my drone with me with lifeboat batteries, and I'm not quite sure how to handle these.
Good question. This is Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango and Echo net control for this evening's TechNet. I have actually traveled with LiPo batteries for both my drone and my DSLR cameras to Mexico and the Dominican Republic. You can carry spare batteries in your carry-on. They must be in their own case, protected to where they have no chance of making contact with another battery. I did that with my batteries. I have a case, small plastic case, almost look like a toothbrush case or soap case that they fit inside to keep each one packaged individually inside my carry-on.
Roger that. Did you ever try to ship any of these batteries? Because I'm thinking of putting the drone into a larger shipment, although I could theoretically put it into the checked bags.
I have not personally shipped anything. I have some friends that have. I just can't. I can't, for my own peace of mind, ship thousands of dollars worth of stuff to a different country without being there to receive it myself. But I know people have. It can be done. I know they have to label the boxes that they're battery, combustible, all that stuff. So, I mean, depending on the country and what it is. I know it changes from there. A couple friends have shipped camera equipment to Cancun and stuff for wedding photography and stuff, all that stuff, so it can be done.
Oh yeah, well I've shipped a lot of expensive stuff via FedEx, and they're always pretty good. I've never had anything stolen, but I'm always worried about if something doesn't meet the correct transportation requirements, and these transportation requirements seem to change daily, if I'm not mistaken. That's a little bit of a hyperbole, but they certainly change with the various battery technologies. And I don't know if for example, the LiFePO technologies are as prone to self-ignition as the lithium-ion technologies.
I'm not 100% sure, but I do not think they are. I know the LiPo was developed is supposed to be a safer method than the lithium-ion, and then the lithium plate batteries that they tried coming out with years ago that were very fragile and very dangerous, to put it bluntly. Anyone else have any type of experience as far as transporting lithium batteries?
AE0CF, comment.
Ben, go ahead and comment.
Last time I looked, which was probably a while ago, they did, I think they restrict airplane flights of lithium batteries to like a limit of how much lithium total inside the battery, or inside the battery as a sort of a limit how much you can actually bring onto the plane. However, I don't think they really distinguish between a difference between the lithium iron phosphates and other types of lithium cells, even the very, very safe the lithium is it's a sulfur-based single-use cell, and even those cells are they've been around for much longer than regular the rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. Yet they'll treat them all the same. Basically, because they don't really want to do nitty-gritty telling difference between different kinds of cells. So sorry about that. Not sure what you can do about that, unfortunately. This is AE0CF.
One DEG comment.
WIQ, the general battery concept.
Thanks for that, Ben. DEG, Mike, go ahead. Come back to you after Mike, Gary.
Alright, well, I have traveled recently after 9/11 quite a few different times. Every time I travel, and if I'm carrying batteries of any sort, or anything that I think is dangerous, I usually get in touch with TSA and find out. The last time I remember checking, I was at that point I was a ham, so I needed to find out about my HT, and if I remember correctly, it has something to do with 100 amp hours. If you have it, I remember something about that, but you still need to call TSA and ask them. It has something to do with the amp hours. You can't have X amount of amp hours. They don't really care if it's a lithium, lead. They don't really care, you know. But if it's got the, you know, lead acid battery, they might not like that one too much. But, you know, talk to them. That's what I remember. There is a limit, 100 amp hour, K1DG.
Thank you, Mike. I guess I never really checked into it that far as amp hour rating. I know most of the stuff I have is either anywhere from 1100 milliamp hour to 5600 milliamp hour that I've traveled with per battery. So, but Carrie, WIQ, you have a comment?
My comment is for just about any battery. If you short the terminals, they'll produce as much current as they can for as long as they can through that short. And if that heats them up to be exploding, bad news. So carrying them so that the contacts cannot be shorted is a prime thing, like the plastic boxes the other gentleman was talking about. This was, if it holds the battery, holds one battery, so the terminals cannot be shorted. That's the most secure thing for traveling. Now, if there's an ampere hour limit on that, I know nothing about that. But anyway, any battery, you short the terminals, they will produce as much current as they can and heat up significantly. And in some cases, there's enough current to heat them up to combustion. So you just can't let the terminals short.
Zero ASP with a comment.
Making connection with anything that could short them out is the main thing to consider. That give you a little bit of insight on that, Terry?
Jim, I do actually have a couple of questions. And first, Carrie is right. The real danger is when the batteries short circuit, and therefore packaging them properly is appropriate. But when you go up against a government official at the airport and say, are your batteries packaged properly, you're subject to their whims and perhaps their understanding of the regulations. And believe me, when it comes to actually contacting a government agency, because I work for one, the last thing you can do is trust any advice they give you. I'm sorry, but that's just true. You simply cannot rely on this, because if you do, you're going to get your materials confiscated at the airport. W0ASP.
Yeah, definitely. Their interpretation of it is what it is at that minute, not what it technically should be, definitely. I know as far as keeping them packaged individually, I feel is the safest bet, and one that it's actually printed on their website for transporting extra batteries, is they have to be packaged individually to where they cannot make contact with any other battery or any other devices within the carry-on, and they have to be on carry-on. So I guess that's about the best we can get without actually being there at that time. Any other questions for this evening's TechNet?
E0CF or comment?
E0CF, Ben, go ahead.
Well, not sure if people have been looking at news and stuff like that, but I don't know if anyone heard about that. The guy who had a scooter that uses batteries. He was, I think he was a double amputee, and they confiscated his scooter because of the battery limitations. So I don't even think that's 100 ampere hours, although you probably could get pretty close to that for that kind of usage. But yeah, these are the things that you got to be careful with. And yeah, also nobody should be taking flooded batteries on. Those things are prohibited for airplanes no matter what. The gel cells and the AGMs are passable for some situations, but definitely not the flooded ones. This is an easy refuel.
Yeah, definitely. I actually just pulled up the FAA's website for batteries to look into that 100 amp hour Mike was talking about. There's the power rating is for lithium-ion batteries, aka rechargeable lithium, lithium polymer, LiPo, secondary lithium. Passengers may carry all consumer-sized lithium-ion batteries up to 100 watt-hours per battery. This size covers AA, AAA, cell phone, PDA, camera, camcorder, handheld games, tablet, portable drill, and standard laptop computer batteries. Watt-hour rating is marked on newer lithium-ion batteries and is explained in number 3 below. External chargers are also considered to be a battery. With airline approval, devices can contain larger lithium-ion batteries, but spares of this size are limited to 2 batteries and carry-on baggage only. So, sounds like according to FAA, any consumer-sized battery up to 100 watt-hours per battery, and you can get approval from individual airlines if you have larger.
Watt hours versus 100 amp hours. The units don't work out quite right. W0ASB, let me think about this.
No, they don't. Ampere hours is a lot higher than watt hours. Easier to see.
Yeah, that goes to show you a form from a government agency. Any other questions or comments for this evening's TechNet? This is Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo Net Controller for this evening's TechNet.
AE0GM, late check-in. I have a question.
AE0GM, go ahead.
I know that this is a question about Terry's comment that radios are 50% efficient. I know that for sideband rigs, we generate a signal at low level and amplify it with linear amplifiers, which are Class A usually, and run about 50% efficiency. But is that true of handy-talkie, FM-only handy-talkies?
W2MIC.
Mark, go ahead.
Yes. In general, all
all power amplifiers used in amateur radios are 50% efficient. So it takes 100 watts to output 50 watts of radio RF frequency power.
Thank you. Assume that answers your question you had.
Thank you very much. Back to net.
Any other questions or comments or ideas for TechNet? Please call now.
Easier CF comment or actually more like question.
Ben, go ahead.
One of the things I've been doing recently is actually looking into how these radios are designed, and for the most part, battery tends to be hooked up straight to the final, and they use the battery power to straight to the as the final power generation stage, which means that as the battery, as most people have found out, as battery voltage drops, power will drop because it's straight hookup. I'm just wondering. I don't have any recent radios. I have basically all really old radios. Wondering if there are any that have a switch mode power supply to keep the voltage constant to the final transistor, so that your power output is going to stay consistent. Well, you don't have to have a switching power supply, but you can. There's also some other regulating techniques, so you can have a constant RF power output up until the battery dies. This is AE0CF.
Good question, and one I do not know. Anyone have an answer for that?
Zero ASP.
ASP, Terry, go ahead.
The amplification factor, or the gain, of your final stage on your radio is going to depend crucially on the supply voltage of the transistors that you're using to provide that final gain stage. And as that voltage drops, your power must necessarily drop.
MIC.
Mark, go ahead.
If I understood Ben's question correctly, he was asking if there is power regulation circuitry in any HT radio currently on the market. Not that I'm aware of. We're seeing more and more battery regulation technology in lamps, so headlamps with LED bulbs, chips, and flashlights. I have both. It works wonderfully. MFJ just started selling a 13.8 volt voltage regulator that you would attach to a battery, a flooded lead acid, an AGM, whatever, that will keep it. It is a switching power supply. It will keep the voltage at a steady 13.8 volts, even if your battery drops to 12, 11, 10, whatever. But I have not seen that kind of technology in a radio yet.
Go ahead.
Oh, just was out there make this comment. Yes, we do have radios that have this switching power supply technology, and that's most people have them in their pockets all the time, and that's the cell phones. They have these switching power supplies in them to keep them constant up until the battery dies. So I don't see any reason why, other than cost, of course, these HTs would have similar technology. Then again, I mean, I don't know about if it would have a high noise, electrical noise generation possibility, but yeah, I'd imagine that can be worked around as well. This is an easy.
Definitely something that would be nice to have to keep power output the same, but like Mark was saying, technology's there for certain things, it's not really in HTs. Might have to do with cost, more cost effective just to have it lower output power when the battery starts going down low, and versus putting the needed circuitry to keep power output the same. Maybe someday there might be something, but between battery technology constantly evolving, you know, there's some of the newer HTs, they have 3,800 milliamp hour batteries, where some are still down at 1,200 milliamp hours. So size and technology is definitely advancing. Any other questions, comments for the TechNet?
Zero WIQ with another comment.
Okay, Carrie, we'll get in a second. There was someone that tried keying up, only caught a small blip of audio. Please call again.
Am I not holding the repeater? N0NYY.
That time you did with your call sign. First time I just caught might have been the last letter of your call sign. But go ahead.
We'll post this as a theory that the reason they don't use the boost voltage converters are because as your battery voltage starts nearing its the end of its charge and starts to drop, you would end up increasing the amount of current you drew from the battery, trying to keep your final power the same. So you would end up avalanching the battery and causing it to drop off extremely quickly, leading to cell voltages that could do damage to the battery in the long term. I think that's why they don't do that. They want it to die slowly and gradually. Again, that's just an opinion or a theory. N0NYY.
Thank you for that, Bart. Carrie, go ahead. N0WIQ, Carrie.
I forgot to turn on my microphone, excuse me. Anyway, there are DC to DC converters that will keep the input voltage the same no matter what the input voltage does. So putting one of the things in a mobile situation where you're trying to power a radio through the startup cycle of a vehicle, you just might want to use one of these things to handle that short-term spike, if you would, well, short term is a matter of perception, but anyway, that would be handy so your radio can feel that surge. I know I didn't have one set up, and I had an ICOM 706 that was very tolerant, so it would be reset every time I started the car. But on the other hand, if you have one of those DC to DC converters, the radio will keep working even though the surge of the starting of the car takes the battery voltage down. Anyway, that's the theory. And I don't want to sidestep Bart because his ideas are quite significant also. So this is what I say. Back to Ned.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, that's a lot of this is theory and trial and advancing technology. So it's everyone has theories, and all of them have correct areas in them, no matter how you look at it. Any other questions or comments for this evening's net? Please call now.
KI5EV.
KI5EV. Taryn, go ahead.
You guys mentioned working different marathon events. I'm still very new to ham radio and never done any events. What do those usually go like, and what would be a good kind of introductory event to try to help run?
Most of them are fairly smooth, and it's great practice for learning communications for when you do need it. That's what a lot of it's used for, is practicing. I know first event I ever did a few years ago, I went and pretty much went along with someone else and learned everything instead of trying it on my own, and now it's fairly simple. Listen to the radio, relay messages that you get from if you're at an aid station or roaming around the event. It's mainly just relaying information to net control where everything's logged and kept up to date. Anyone have anything they'd like to add to it?
WIQ.
WIQ, Carrie.
I've never taken part in one of those events, but I know that at least the NCARC puts together a set of simplex repeaters so that handhelds can be used for most of those aid stations, but that's also stretching things out a little bit because they're using portable repeaters to do that. Anyway, that is something to think about when you think about one of those events, because a club like the NCARC tries to make it so everybody can be able to help, handheld or mobile, whatever. Anyway, back to net.
Yeah, definitely. And always try and make it as easy as possible. I know for me, this past Saturday for the Quad Rock, well, it was my first time helping with that event itself. I've helped with many other events, and I was at the aid station, and the two guys that were there with me, it was their first time ever helping with an event, and it went very smooth for us anyway. I know Phil and Luann were net control for a recent event. Hey, they can, I would say get in and help. If you're not comfortable doing it by yourself, ask if you can join and shadow someone, ride along with someone, or just be a backup at an aid station to learn it. I mean, it's definitely fun. Most of them, they have get together afterwards, and just a lot of fun if you ask me. Anyone have anything additional? Go ahead.
Definitely being an emergency communications operator for these events is remarkably rewarding. And there's the MS 150, I think, coming up at the end of June, and our tech advisor, KI1KN, is coordinating this. So check with him. He's going to be using this repeater, and it's very well organized. And if you want to be a member, you can sign up and go with someone who's done it before. W0ASB.
WIQ. I didn't quite understand that call sign, but you are talking about KI0KN.
Yeah, James's call sign KI0KN. It's the Bike MS event. Goes from Fort Collins to Denver and back. I'll definitely be looking for additional operators to help with that. I know it's a 2-day event, so it's definitely one that if you want to learn, be a good one. There's going to be a lot of people involved in helping, and like has been mentioned, go along with someone if you want to learn. Go along with someone that's done it and get some learning and time on the air for events. That give you a little bit of an answer, Taryn?
That does. Thank you very much. Yeah, just kind of curious how these things would go and what exactly you'd be doing. Sounds like a family message relay, and yeah, I definitely hope to give that a try sometime. KI5EEV.
Definitely, yeah, most of it's message relay. People assigned to aid stations, or if they have issues, you call net control to be the emergency communication to get help there if help's needed, restock supplies. Basically, the middleman that relays everything, unless additional help's needed and you're comfortable with it. Any other questions or comments for this evening's TechNet? Please call now.
LAO.
LAO, Luann, go ahead.
They are absolutely so much fun. Helping out and working with the community and with the races, you just kind of egging, telling people they're doing great. Yep. It's fun, and like you said, if you're not confident, go ahead and team up with folks. Phil and I do net control. If you want to come hang out with us in Star Drive, you can kind of see how it goes and get involved.
Thank you for the comment, Luann. Any other questions or comments? Please call now.
WIQ by and by.
Thank you, Gary.
The by and by, K0KN, is a member of the NCARC club. So he has resources of the club for doing, coordinating this stuff. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, definitely. And you could all go to the club's website, www.ncarc.net. Halfway down the homepage, there's a list of upcoming events that have stuff listed on there with the contacts. If you want to help with one of the events, go on there and get a hold of them. Let them know you want to help. If you want to ride along with someone, tag along to learn how to do it and learn the ins and outs, do that. Do one last call for anyone that has a question or comment or wants to check in late. Please call now. Hearing nothing, this is Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo. I'd like to thank everyone for checking into this evening's Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club TechNet. As a reminder, the Club Net is Wednesday evening, early check-in starting at 6 p.m., net starting at 6:30. Look forward to hearing from everyone next week, 7-3. Have a good evening, and the repeater is open for general use.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.